Why did he do that is why we're making this video today. We're breaking it down into three parts: Trump's EU tariff threat, the second one about Trump's Apple's tariff plans, what he thinks that he's going to put on Apple, and the third, what Warren Buffett has said in his 2025 Berkshire Hathaway meeting regarding not just the tariffs, but also his strategy with Apple, and why has he pared down his position by more than 50%. Anyways, so welcome everyone, and I have Nikhil and Sean along with me. You guys ready to dig into the first one of the EU tariff? That I'm guessing was not a matter of concern on Thursday, but on Friday we decided that we had a 50% tariff, and on Tuesday morning's opening we're going to now see that going back to its earlier days of July 9th. That's what's been happening in current days of affairs. Anyway, so Trump currently has been saying that he's proposing a 50% tariff, and that 50% tariff would be effective June 1st, because apparently the EU and America in their deal talks are going nowhere. For some reason, that was the case on Friday. As of today, Trump had a great call with the EU president Ursula, and for they like it's always been happening, Trump clearly came out and said that it's a privilege that he's able to extend it. That being said, now we have a tariff rate that will be the 10% tariff rate on EU all the way up to July 9th. The EU president has decided to go ahead and speed up the trade progress, the trade talks. If all goes well, we should be having an EU trade deal with America before July 9th. Keep in mind, guys, on Friday, the NASDAQ was down by more than 1%. Most markets were lower by 2%, but they recovered by 1%. And that's what we've been saying, right? The first time you're hit with a tariff, you drop massively. The second time and third time, when you're hit with the same tariffs again and again, you're not going to fall that much because the market knows how to react. I think you guys would agree with me that this time the market did feel that he was negotiating. It wasn't more of a scenario where he's like, okay, on June 1st, I am going in with a 50% tariff. It was more like, hey guys, come to the table, talk to me, make me feel nice, and I'll carry on with whatever's required. What do you guys think?
Yeah, but it's a more like a threatening thing, right? Like he just came, announced on Twitter saying we will increase tariffs by what 50% on Europe. I'm like, dude, you give, and then we ended up giving like a week. I'm like, this is. I think the market also fell a lot, like maybe 1%. But then like during the market hours, people are like, yeah, this is just negotiating, and then they ended up recovering back. So I think everyone's gotten used to it. So
I think what
yeah.
what what Nikhil was telling me was also this, right? That he's not negotiating. He's basically playing economic chicken with the European Union. That's what's happening. What do you think, Nikhil?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's true because it's come to a point where there's only so many times you can probably bluff the market or even your trading partners because you can't be in a scenario where one of your closest Western allies has a higher tariff rate than the Chinese, right? It's just not, it's not a scenario which will sort of play out well in the long run, nor is that what they actually want. The only question though, I think, is that if you can, sure, you can go ahead and, you can have all of these negotiations and back and forth. The question is how much of uncertainty, while, yeah, the market did not react as violently as back in Feb and April, right? Eventually, you'll start wearing out trust, whether that's with your allies or whether that's with the broader market. So I think that's my only concern. And if that continues to happen, eventually, sure, they may settle at a base tariff rate that's acceptable, but not sure how much damage will that, volatility do to the market, from here to then. So I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, and the markets did react pretty sharply. So let's be honest,
Yeah.
Friday was not a great day for most stocks, especially for Apple. We'll get to that in our second part. But
Yeah.
you did see that the 50% tariffs were going to come on autos, on pharmaceuticals, on pretty much all of the imports coming in from America. And you know who would get hit the most, right? It would be Germany and their automakers. BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes Benz, they all sell a lot of cars in America. And if you start having a 50% import tariff, you're not going to be able to deal with that kind of a number for the EU. So I'm guessing it was such kind of a negotiating tactic where he knew that the Europeans would cave. He wanted to bring them to the table. And he was also able to bring down the 10-year yield, which was closing in on making a new high for the intermediate term at 4.6, 4.7%, right? So for everyone that wants to understand what the bond yields are and what the 10-year rate is, just imagine that when the yield goes higher, your mortgage rates and your home loans increase. Trump administration's main goal is to keep reducing the number. If he's able to reduce the number, and reduce the 10-year yield, he's able to make sure that he's making it easier for the consumer to buy a house in America. While that being said, let me also let you know that he was able to put down two of those scenarios where not only was the 10-year yield lowering with the effect of the 50% tariffs on the EU, while at the same time, he was also making sure that the EU members do come to the table to negotiate. If for some reason they were not able to do that, and we did have a scenario where the tariffs were coming on June 1st at 50%, I believe that would be global mayhem because of a few things. One, the uncertainty, because exactly a month back, everyone knew, or a month and a half back, everyone knew that the extensions were till July 9th. If with one tweet he can change those extensions and make it just the next week itself, let me clearly tell you that that uncertainty, knowing that there is no 90-day pause because anyone can get tariffed at any moment, is now a sword hanging on all these countries' necks, right? So that was something which was in my head. I knew that if this thing went through on June 1st, it would be one of the most, I would say it would be worse than even the first tariff effects that we had. Not just the reciprocal tariffs between America and China that happened, but the larger tariff rate of trying to put the 47%, the 50%, the 37% on the larger economies that he thought he would. Keep that in mind because if the 10-year yield is heading lower, you are able to make sure that it is considerably easier to put down in terms of prices. If the 10-year yield drops, you will be able to make sure that if home loans come lower, people buy more homes, you're able to turbocharge the economy. If that's not able to happen, he's losing on two fronts. Then at the end of the day, we do believe that this was a negotiating tactic. It was nothing more than that. I mean, I think both of you all would also agree with me on that concept that negotiations is all that it was. This is his art of making a deal. That's it.
Yeah, but then I think what will happen is, even if, say, a lot of people agree to whatever terms or tariffs that he has asked for, right? Like he's saying, okay, now let Europe take a 25% hit or whatever. Tomorrow, after agreeing to all of yours, you might come back again and be like, oh, I'm not satisfied with the 25%. So then you're just going around circles for the next 4 years. So I think it's hinting to a little bit of uncertainty in terms of, when will it stop? When will we not stop tweeting all this rubbish, I guess?
Yeah, and it's not just yeah, sorry.
No, I think because even Powell is not agreeing to reduce rates. He's like, oh, we are data dependent, which is okay. But then he's relying on Powell to essentially cut rates and then to hike tariffs up. So I'm like, it's just a little weird. I mean, it is bullish. The market is going to be bullish, but then they're kind of expecting him to slow down a lot this year.
Yeah, but to some
Yeah,
extent,
it's
let
not
me
just
be
about
honest, right?
the
When it comes to Powell, sorry, Nikhil, but let me just put this in about Powell.
yeah,
When it comes to
go ahead.
Powell, he's not going to be able to cut rates because as of Thursday, he believed there were no tariffs on the EU, just 10%. On Friday, he believes that it's at 50%. On Monday morning, he knows now it's back to 10%. If your data is not consistent, how is he supposed to be dependent on it? That's all that I want to say. Go ahead, Nikhil. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's true. I was just about to add that it's not just about the uncertainty that he's creating globally, but just for some of the largest companies in the world in America, right? So Apple thought they were safe. Apparently today they're not. So there's a lot of uncertainty and back and forth. And when asked is Apple being singled out, he said, no, no, this could apply to Samsung. This could apply to other smartphone manufacturers, electronics manufacturers. I mean, look, if the three of us are sitting here and thinking, hey, there's a lot of uncertainty, maybe we should watch or wait before we put in additional capital to what we already have. Just imagine what some of these larger companies are thinking about when it comes to AI capex, expanding, hiring. Yeah, there's maybe everyone just waits, and the problem is if everyone's data dependent and everyone waits, how badly does that slow things down, and at what point does that become irreversible? So that's probably the only concern here,
So
or
talking
one of
about
the
the
many.
large, yeah, talking about the large companies, one of the largest companies in the world on Friday, half an hour before the EU tariffs were spoken about, got a tweet as a message that they were next in line to basically have a tariff of 25% on all their imports coming from anywhere around the globe, purely because they decided not to make their products in America. The company is Apple. It's a $3 trillion crown jewel of American capitalism. that at this moment is still possibly going to be getting tariffed at 25%. For everyone that's new to this, here's what's happening. President Trump tweeted on Friday saying, because Tim Cook is not listening to him, Tim Cook's not traveling with him. And I'm paraphrasing. Tim Cook has not been his best friend when it comes to traveling to the Middle East and everywhere else. He is now going to be putting a tariff rate of 25% on all imports of Apple entering the United States of America. He does not want Tim Cook to be making, or Apple for that matter of fact, to be making its plants in India. He wants them to be making iPhones in America. Let me make this simple. If Apple makes its iPhone in America, the iPhone's not going to cost $1,000. It is going to cost over $2,500-3,000 easily, bare minimum. No one's going to be buying. It's the end of a $3 trillion crown for Apple. Again, we do believe this is a negotiated tactic. Since the first administration, the first term that President Trump has been there, has been getting the most favored company approach. Even in this particular term, even when the Chinese tariffs were put, smartphones were exempted. Tim Cook had a phone call, it got done. This is my belief. I'm not sure if everyone will be agreeing to this. I do believe that there will be a call between Tim Cook and the president in which he'll let him know that the next set of AI servers and tertiary products, which are not the iPhone at the moment, would now be built over a 10-year or a 15-year or a 7-year plan with trillions of dollars being spent. And these tariffs would not come on. President Trump wants the limelight. He wants the win. Tim Cook knows that. He's going to give him the win. How does he do that? He's going to basically give him this 10-year idea of AI servers and all this other stuff that's going to happen, which he can take credit for because he's only in power for the next 3.5 years. But he can take credit for the 10-year plan and the great America that has become because of him, purely because of him. Again, that's the bullish side, right? Let me come to the bearish side as well. If this 25% tariff does come, you will pretty much be seeing a reaction on the stock price, which would half the price of Apple. We're currently down 33% from all-time highs for Apple. No reason we could not be down 50% if the tariffs come. Apple is spending over billions and billions of dollars. From what I remember, they're spending $2 billion on a new plant in India just to build the iPhones. And these are not some things that you can put up within a week, 2 weeks, even 6 months or a year or 2 years for that matter. It takes multiple years to set these plants up. There's a reason that the labor
There was
costs
this
are
really
cheaper in
old,
India, right? Sorry.
yeah. No, I just sorry to interrupt you. Just remember there was a really old video where I think where Tim Cook was essentially asked, why didn't you actually build these iPhones in the United States? And this was a question which was also asked to Steve Jobs, and and both of them had the same answer. You just don't have the supply chain, and it's just realistically not possible. Which means if it would have to be like a pure import or like no, a knockdown import and then reassembled here. So there's just no way. And I think some people might be wondering why is that not possible. But if you just look at the scale of those factories, I think some of them are almost the size of small cities.
Yeah. I would say larger as well.
This, yeah, and they're supported by a huge infrastructure and a labor force, and it's just not possible to move that. And also, if you're Tim Cook, you're thinking, hey, President Trump's term is what, 4 years? Why should I make decisions for 20 years based on somebody whose terms been around for 4 years? So Apple will still survive irrespective of the president, and they'll probably not be making 20-year decisions to please a 4-year president, right?
I just have a thing. I mean, hypothetical question. What you guys choose, right? You think if given a choice between building factories in America, like Apple building factories in America, you think they would choose that? Or just say, like, we'll take the 25% hit. We'll mark up the products by 25%. You think they would do that?
That's actually a
If,
very good
if
question.
it's if it's between the two, right?
So one
Because
thing I'll
I
tell you,
think
this is something that what you're saying is absolutely right. If there is one company that can take 25% tariffs, it is Apple. Apple's profit margins are 30%. And Donald Trump knows that. The only company in America that can take a 25% tariff on a hardware product is Apple because they sit on so much money.
And probably Nvidia.
You're right, but the only thing with Nvidia is that you cannot tariff products of Nvidia considering that they're already made in America, right?
and
They
that's
do not
like
have,
gold for them right now. The chips are
yeah.
like gold.
So
So I don't
Nvidia to
think,
that
yeah.
Nvidia to that extent should be okay. Not that much of an issue, especially considering that they're going to be making lower end chips for China, as of what I read in the early this morning. Anyways, coming back to Apple. Apple has a 30% profit margin, which means for every $100 it sells, it's able to keep $30 in profit. So they give up 25% very easily. Remember, the 25 is not coming out of the 30. The 25 is coming on maybe $10 or $15. For everyone that's new to this whole tariff thing and how it works, please remember, if your iPhone is $1,000, if I put a 25% tariff, doesn't mean that the price of the iPhone is going to be $1,250. It is the cost of the input from another country that comes in. Now, the iPhone is 1,000, but if the product coming from China to America is only worth $200 in cost, then if I put a 25% tariff, there's only a $50 tariff, which means the $200 cost becomes a $250. Additionally, that means a $50 increase to the $1,000. So the tariff is something that Apple can eat. The cost of setting up in America, paying American wages, paying American labor, paying American overtime, paying within American working hours, and the cost of land, the cost of building it in a robotic fashion instead of building it in a man-made fashion, because you will have the cost of having labor is going to far outpace the cost in America is going to far outpace the cost of having robotics that can build these iPhones is a lot more. So remember that it is easier for them to pay this 25% tariffs than to worry about paying the capital expenditure that they would require to build these plants at that scale, which would anyways not happen in 2 to 4 years. So if I was Tim Cook, I would logically pay the 25% tariff or try bringing it lower to 10%. I could negotiate the 25 lower, right? But the cost of land, the cost of electricity, the cost of American labor cannot be negotiated lower and lower and lower. That is something that you would have to do. So as a thought process, and I'm guaranteeing you, President Trump knows that the only company that can deal with these kind of tariffs is because their moat is so strong, right? Because remember one thing, it's not a tax on Apple. It's literally a tax on every consumer holding an iPhone. Because who's paying it? At the end of the day, it's the consumer paying. It's nobody else paying it. It's not the Chinese paying it. It's not the Indians paying it. It's not the Vietnamese paying it. It is the American consumer buying an iPhone that's paying for this. Plain and simple. No one else is doing this. And Apple can't move factories overnight. Tariffs here mean clearly pain for Wall Street and Main Street. It is not just the Chinese or the Vietnamese or the Indians that are going to pay for this. It is Wall Street and Main Street of America paying for this. Plain and simple. There is no way to sugarcoat it. Right? What do you guys believe about that?
Yeah, uh, I think that's true. I just had a feeling that they might just see this type of stuff. Have you seen? I don't know. Have you guys seen the new uh, uh the Xiaomi phones that China just released? They unveiled a factory which has zero humans making those phones, and they're pumping out like what 1,000 phones a day, all automatic, right? So maybe Apple could do that, but I think that would take years to do it. Plus, I don't think they've reached those levels yet. But everything in America, whatever they build in America is expensive. Like for those things that made in America, things turn out to be scams, right? Because you had to meet a certain threshold to be made in America. The rest were all imported from China. Um, I just see this as a very temporary thing, what Trump is doing, because people in America are not, they're ready to eat a lot of expenses to have, less and less money power to buy things. So I think this thing might come to an end soon. Not very soon, but maybe what, a year and a half of this nonsense.
Sorry, but I don't really think a year and a half we would be able to be at all-time highs or higher if these tariffs stay at these rates. 10% I can still understand. 25, 50%, things aren't looking good.
Yeah, it would also like the
Then
point
then
is it's not
then
just about Apple.
but then like Volkswagen and all come up and say we can't sustain 25% or 50%.
They can't. Volkswagen's margins are 4%.
Yeah. Just a quick word about Apple, right? So just it's not just that okay, so yeah, Apple can eat up those margins, but at the same time, it also means Apple's going to be valued very differently, which also means you're going to lose, I don't know, it's tough to forecast something like this, billions in valuation, which means it's going to affect the indices, which means it's going to affect the broader market. So yeah, it's going to have like a lot of other, repercussions. Yeah, so tariffs could essentially hurt, the very company that fuels American tech pride, right? So it's a part of FANG, now it's a part of Mag 7. And I don't think anybody could have timed this investment better than Buffett, right? He bought Apple when nobody wanted to own it. He
Yeah.
sold when nobody wanted to sell it. So
True.
I mean, that's probably one of the greatest tech trades ever.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into the third part, which what we're saying is what is Warren Buffett's view on tariffs and what is his view on Apple, considering that he was one of the largest shareholders of Apple at one point, owning 10% of the company. And as of today, has paid back over 50% of his position, which took a lot of people by storm. But now that you think about it in hindsight, it was one of the greatest trades ever made. Warren Buffett also did come out and clearly say that the only man to have made more money for Berkshire and after, maybe not even after, actually, more money for Berkshire than Warren Buffett himself was Tim Cook. That being said, they were buyers of Apple stock below $50 a share. The stock currently trades at 200 and at its all-time high was over 250. Warren Buffett, to that much of an extent, could be at 94, but he's pretty much the reason why a lot of us are still investing because of what he's been able to achieve, and he's taught us the laws of compounding to a very large extent. So, what was Warren Buffett's take, right? I mean, on tariffs. Let's stick to that first, then we can come back to Apple and then the larger say of what we believe is going to happen. In the 2025 Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, what he did clearly say is that tariffs are weapons, and the way President Trump is using it, I'm paraphrasing again, because he didn't use the word President Trump, he stays away from politics. But the way the current president is using it, it is an act of war. I'm going to repeat that. Warren Buffett's that tariffs are weapons, and when used, they become acts of war. Keep that in mind, guys, because in April, when the stocks fell, it literally seemed like we were at war economically, not militarily.
Yeah, it did. I mean, that's what Canada came out and said. It's some of their closest trading partners, Canada, Mexico, the EU. They're all surprised. They're like, we're allies. We're not supposed to be treated that way. And so, yeah, it is in a way sort of using economic coercion to get what you want, right? And sometimes that's not what you want. What he wants may not really be what he's stating either. There could be some various other underlying reasons why he actually wants some of these we may never know. So yeah, you never know.
Yeah, that's true. But I'll tell you one thing, you know what? When the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett himself, calls tariff dangerous, it's important for us to listen, right? He's seen these things happen again and again in his life. It's been over 70 years of investing for him. That's more than most people's lifetime. So he's seen what happens next. Recessions do not start loudly. Recessions start in a subtle manner. You don't realize you're in a recession till the time you're already halfway into it. Anyone predicting a recession doesn't know what's going on. Anyone saying we're in a recession doesn't again know what's going on. Keep that in mind, guys, because recessions to a large extent do not happen with a lot of pomp and fanfare. These are not things that go on that way, right? So again, it's important that you guys continue to see this in a way where I would say that global prosperity, for it to continue happening, you would require things like American capitalism and exceptionalism to continue. What do you guys think about it?
I think what Buffett was also getting at is that I don't think it's against tariffs because they're very pro-American capitalistic people, which is okay. He's not against tariffs, but he's against the abruptness of how it's imposed, right?
True.
It's just like you wake up one Sunday and then it just turmoil. He's like, I don't think he's a fan of that because I think over you want a somewhat of calm in the market. Silly big events like these do make money for people, both long and short. Uh, I think for the overall if you just talk about investing, I think having tax is okay, great, right? You can negotiate that thing, whatever you like, until kingdom come, right? But just getting up one Sunday and tweeting about, I put tariffs on Europe, it's madness, I think, because it's just so uncertain, right? Because then when people are just looking at your tweets, I think someone asked Buffett, right? What do you think about the president? He's like, oh, we don't talk about politics. So I think it's a subtle way of saying that he does not want to comment on Trump's erratic tariff behavior.
Yeah, maybe, sorry, but maybe if he says something, he'll get tariffed. Who knows?
I because honestly, I think the one person that would love the tariffs going on, not in the way that Trump is doing, whatever, like the tariffs being imposed on other country would be Charlie Munger. I think he would be. I felt he's a little bit of a communist, but I think because he's very pro-America, I think he would have loved the way the tariffs are being put. I mean, not the way the tariffs are being put, but the tariffs being put right now. not the way. I think they're against how abrupt, how shocking it is. You just wake up a day and then boom, 1 hour before the market opens, oh, Europe is growing for 50%. This is crazy. So I think Trump is calling, not Trump, Buffett likes announcements. Like, you have a announcement saying, okay, we're going to put tariffs. You're thinking about putting tariffs. Some clarity. But yeah, I think he's not a big fan of the tweets that are just going on that Trump is just yelling out in the world.
Yeah, just a quick thing about what you said before. Look, I think even recently, I think was it 5 days ago? I think Jamie Dimon was in China, and in the Bloomberg interview, said this very clearly. I don't remember the exact phrase, but what he was trying to say was the markets priced in the effect of tariffs too quickly, and then repriced it again too way too quickly. He didn't like the way the S&P shot back up so quickly, and I think what he was trying to say was we're being way too optimistic about this way too early. And like you said, this sort of ties back to what you said when everybody actually expected a recession because of tariffs, you took the tariffs off. It did not happen. You had 1 quarter of negative GDP, but you have banks still forecasting a low but not a negative GDP. But now, maybe now that no one's expecting a recession to actually hit, and if these surprise tariffs keep coming to us, or we keep getting hit with them, we really don't know. So there are a lot of unknowns out there in terms of how this might actually pan out.
Yeah, and I think Buffett, because of the amount of shares he owns in Apple, he's watching it very, very closely. Because from what I last read, he has over 70 billion, and it could be falling on a daily basis with all of these tweets happening. But then again, he has $1 trillion and $300 billion, $350 billion in cash. So he's flush with money, right? Anyways, guys, so coming to the end of this, what we're trying to come in closing is Trump is pretty much playing chess with tariffs, and markets are playing Russian roulette. We've been saying this in our previous interviews and chats as well, that they're not as bearish as everyone's been looking forward to. It is a bullish event. We've been proven right again as of Friday, and now again on Tuesday morning when markets open, unless something else happens, guys. But until then, the markets are up 1%, the Nasdaq's up 1%, because the tariffs on the EU have been delayed. Literally, they've just gone back to where they were compared to a week back. And so what we have today is a president that's swinging tariffs like a hammer. He's got the world's biggest companies in his crosshairs, and the world's most trusted investor is sounding the alarm. Is this strategy or is this self-sabotage? We will not know. Maybe July 9th is the answer. Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you want all of this noise stripped away and the signal brought to you front and center by the three of us. Also, you guys can join in live. We go live on YouTube pretty much every day now at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time after the markets close. So you can always go onto YouTube. Our links available, and just join in. Ask your questions. Feel free to ask any stock questions. Anything you guys like, go ahead and drop your thoughts about this current situation that the world is in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, guys. Anything else, Sean and Nikhil, if you guys want to close by saying?
Yeah, I think we also have, we're almost at the end of the month, and we'll have to just keep watching, some macro data that will come out next month, and we'll probably try to time a lot of these videos, at least get some of these videos out and our thoughts out as soon as we get some more macro data next month.
I think I just want to say that Trump is following President McKinley, the tariff king, but we're not seeing that when McKinley imposed these harsh tariffs on the economy, it came to bite him back, and he had to reverse back. So I think we might see something similar. Who knows?
Yeah, but remember that Donald Trump knows the art of the deal, right? But I've been saying this from before. He's going to save us from the tariffs. He's going to save us from the tariffs that he's putting on us. Don't forget that, guys. William McKinley didn't give a shit about that. But Trump's going to save us from his own tariffs. Anyways, guys, don't forget to subscribe for daily market breakdowns at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube Live. Take care, guys. See ya.
See you guys.